λέμε την κάμερα. Έτσι λέμε.
Ναι.
Περιμένω κάτι, αλλά θα θυμίσω το πίσω. Έτσι cabine safe. Δεν πειράζει, αυτός είναι μέλος. Ξεκινήσουμε. Κυριάκος. Άστον, εντάξει, άμα θέλει να κάνει το τραπέζι. Θα κάτω εδώ. I'll go press play then. And I'll hit the lights.
Excellent. Now,
Never mind. Not yet, not yet, sit down. Well, to begin with, I would like, don't worry guys, I will turn on the lights in a minute.
yeah.
Would like to apologize for, well, the noise.
We didn't know about it to start with. Sorry guys, it just... They have a small... the garden was locked upstairs, so they have little kids and it's a little bit more noisy than expected.
Yeah, it's all the kids in the Greek school here, so they're excused. They're youngsters.
They have an excuse.
Plus their mamas and dads are upstairs.
Are they dancing or something?
No, just kids.
Just keep playing. Okay.
They have everything, have the balls, hula hoops, a lot.
Oh, and here is one of the youngsters. So, I hope the sound will be enough. Would you care to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, for the time being. Thanks so much for coming, for the economy of the discussion. Let's try to keep this in English for our guests here. My name is Tasos Aretos.
Wait.
This is Dimitris and this is Nikos, for anybody who doesn't know them. We belong to a social front called ΕΠΑΜ in Greek, so it stands for United People's Front. Basically, the main ΕΠΑΜ as its main purpose is to introduce the reality of the situation in Greece and propose solutions to the problems that the country is facing currently. Apart from that, from the information side of things, there are also a lot of practical things that ΕΠΑΜ is doing. But we can talk about what we propose as a solution and what ΕΠΑΜ does later in the open discussion we will have. We will start with showing the documentary Debt Management, which explains the history of the Greek debt and the dynamic of it. So, so with no further ado, we'll start screening. Thank you.
Parentheses in the history of mankind. And now we are closing this parenthesis. It was only because of some pressure of the Communist Party of the USSR, the social movements, of the political parties, after the World War, where we had to unite, to reconstruct. And this was just 3 or 4 decades, and now it's over. Now the idea is to get back to the ultra-capitalism that we had 2 centuries ago, or 1 century ago. Well, the European lifestyle and the welfare state, supposedly, if we have to believe what is happening in politics now, it will disappear in a few years. In Greece, it is disappearing already. In Spain, it is disappearing as well. We are like in the Argentinization of Europe, which is bad economical models or models well done to create some sort of slaverism based on credit, a new way of colonialism based not on grants but on credit. So this is going to happen here in the periphery of Europe.
The euro, when physically every European has the same currency in their pockets, but in the previous 3 bankruptcies, the 32, 43, and 27, the Greek drachma was pegged, basically had a fixed exchange rate to the French franc, the British pound, and the dollar. The only period Greece didn't have to go through a bankruptcy is when it has its own national currency. and a true national currency that was issued by the government according to its needs and based on the size of its economy was only possible after the Second World War, because until 1949, let's skip the Civil War period, the Greek currency was issued by the Bank of Greece, which was basically a subsidiary of the Bank of England. It was funded, created by the Bank of England in order to stop the Americans infiltrating the Greek market in the early 20th century. Now, that I think kind of shows what happens when Greece and other countries enter monetary unions of that kind. And second piece of history, in the 60s, when there was an open discussion before the military junta about whether Greece should enter the forefather of the modern EU, every economic scientist from the far left, from anarchists all the way to the people that supported monarchy in Greece, everybody was saying monetary unions don't work. The only thing they do when it comes to crisis, they amplify the effects. And that's a historic fact, has been proven again and again. And basically, one more time, people that actually knew what they were talking about, they were plainly ignored. And we entered the European Economic Community, and then we had 7 years of dictatorship. Then in the 80s, we had a broken promise from a socialist party that promised to exit the European Community, to exit NATO, to start to regain the sovereignty of the country. And a logic progress was basically us entering the Euro.
Do you have any questions that you want to ask, like, regarding this?
Is that a DVD?
It's a free documentary. Everybody can watch it now. They're on YouTube. All the creators have their own little website. It's going to be.
The creators are one Armenian and one Greek.
Not just the name, particularly Greek.
Well, things Armenians. There's plenty of generations of Armenians growing up in Greece since, I don't know, 1910, roughly.
At least. Some of them making their way into Greece after 1922.
Do you know if there are plans to put it on DVD?
As far as we can tell, we didn't have any communication with the creators in that respect. But I'm sure that if
do you want to reproduce it?
To show to some.
You have it on a stick or a memory stick. So if you want us to make a simple presentation, you can just have it on a memory stick. I don't know.
So,
then we can email the producers and then we can find this out.
And something maybe to help you put things in perspective, because when you hear billions and so many billions, there's so many billions, there's a little bit, the number is a bit too large to grasp. The actual debt, the actual budget deficit in Greece, within the 10 years it had the euro as its currency, was 20 billion euros. The cost of the Olympics was 12. I'm not saying that the budget deficit was the cost of the Olympics, just I'm saying that the actual budget deficit of Greece was roughly equal, of the same magnitude as the cost of the Olympics. So it's not a point that the government borrowed money and actually anyone in Greece had their standards of living increased, because the vast majority of money borrowed were basically used to pay all their loans. They were not really given to education, infrastructure, or any kind of investment. And that's a sad part of it, because I don't think even in Greece people really appreciate the magnitude of the debt and where actually the money has gone. And when you start realizing what has happened, then the only logical conclusion is like, why we should bother repay this?
There is absolutely no sense in a bailout being given to Greece, which just increases the size of the debt and the interest to be paid.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's just an economic nonsense.
It
Well,
is-
it's not an economic nonsense, it's manoeuvring the people into slavery.
Which is exactly what they know and what's exactly their purpose. I believe you noticed that quote in the first loan agreement in 2010 that says that the borrower irreversibly and irrevocably quits his own right to declare his national sovereignty as his
Immunity against the debt
bingo.
due to national sovereignty.
The idea is, you know, to take the country for less than a piece of rotten bread.
Not just
Every last little bit of it. And use it in every other way possible to make money that does not involve anything in the picture for those local natives that you can offer them, you know, tiny little shiny things that like they used to do in Africa 200 years ago. Because that's a good piece of real estate, and they want to get rid of 10 million occupants.
Yeah, it's kind of, and if somebody looks at the headlines, let's say in the bankruptcy of 32, there was a bankruptcy which was achieved with a basically dead haircut. We had roughly what they did with the recent PSI process, we had about a 70% haircut. But when your lender agrees to go into a dead haircut, what they want is some actual items as a, let's say, as a compensation. So basically that's one of the reasons during that period, 29-32, there was a lot of agreements signed by Greece that basically were privatizing everything, literally everything. The water, electricity, the mining rights, everything was given to private companies. And that's still a consequence of these agreements is one of the reasons why Greece is not able to mine
Its own mineral wealth.
even as the smallest fraction cannot be mined, despite the fact that the latest assessment of its value is about 1.3 trillion euros. We're not talking about gold and diamonds, we're talking about industry metals like copper, aluminium, rare earths, things that are lignite, yeah. But basically minerals that are necessary for industry. No matter how you see it, you're always going to need copper.
So those decades-old agreements essentially say that Greeks have no right to use their mineral wealth because it has been given in view of those long haircuts previously. And one of those companies, I can't recall its name, I apologize for that, was given for a certain number of decades full rights to certain Greek mines. Although they haven't bothered mining themselves a lot, but whenever they write something about it, they make sure to do anything other than actually mining to increase their stock market shares, and that's the point. And about now, I think it's this year or the following, that little treaty ceases to be in effect. So this whole thing may be a part of the big picture trying to renew the agreement that ties up the mineral wealth of Greece with them or someone else that they are connected with. I must tell you another thing that you may laugh regarding the history of the Greek debts. What if I tell you that Greece continuously, right to the present day, a great chunk of its debts is actually the debts of the once Ottoman Empire?
Ottoman Empire?
Yes.
Basically what happened was during the Balkan Wars when Macedonia, a lot of the islands of the Aegean and the new territories were liberated, instead of basically declaring that to the Allies that we've liberated these lands and now they belong to us, so they're not on continuum of the Ottoman Empire. They were actually agreed to recognize the wars as wars of expansion. So we conquered the lands, subsequently taking part of the Ottoman Empire, which, in a logical jump, they considered that we should take over a portion of the Ottoman debt, which was attributed to the size of the lands occupied during the Balkan Wars. Now, Turkey, with Ataturk, Bulgaria, and all the new countries that were created in the Balkans and Asia and the Near East after the Balkan Wars, every single country said, you know something, that was the Sultan that owed you the money, take it up with him. The only government that actually
keeps paying that.
Yeah, no, just said, yeah, okay, we conquered those lands. These lands didn't really, for any reason, belong to us. So since we conquered them, yeah, we have to pay you the portion of the Sultan's debt that was attributed to these lands.
It was an important technicality that they refer to those as nea hore, new lands, implying conquest rather than liberation. Because if you were just to say, these were our lands for heaven's sake, and we just take them because, you know, by natural right they're ours, but we couldn't say anything to that.
Partition of 22 split that.
Oh, here's the funny thing. In the Treaty of Lausanne in 1923, where Venizelos and Ataturk, Ismetinonu made, they had to decide what is next with the French and the British. The French and the British, of course, didn't give a damn that you had 4.5 million people dead in Asia Minor, not to mention the refugees. So they said, both the Turks and the Greeks said, okay, we're gonna pay the debts of the Ottoman Empire, 50-50. So Greece, when they came to Greece, of course, we started paying and pays ever since the debts of the freaking Sultan. The last of the line of the Ottoman Turks, now living a nice life of an ex-king in France. When they went to Turkey asking for the first installment of the debt, Kemal Atatürk told them, sorry guys, I don't have the money, I cannot pay you. But yeah, you said that you would. Yeah, I said I would, but I don't have the money. If you want the money, you must come and take it. Well, Atatürk had just shown, it was very recent, that he can lead the Turks to some nice fighting. So they just didn't dare to mess up with him, so Turkey never had to pay any debts of the Ottoman Empire ever again. Another funny thing from that period is from World War I. As a chunk of Thrace and Macedonia that was occupied by Bulgaria prior to 1917 and was given to Greece after World War I, the French, in particular, demanded that a part of the liberated territory is theirs by right of we fought together in the same front. They especially selected the railways of crossing through Thrace and Macedonia, many of which were actually made with either French, British or German funds. And those funny politicians of Greece actually accepted that, and they took a loan in order to buy the railways that were existing there, that were, you know, in territory occupied by the Greek army, to the French, so that the French say, okay, we don't ask any more of this territory in the Balkans. If that made any sort of sense to you, then that's pretty much the history of Greece from 1821 to the present day.
Shall I give you some money so I can keep my car?
Yeah, something like that, pretty much.
Bingo.
Sorry, isn't the case that the Greek nation or Greek government have always been weak, and they've always been relying on the foreign powers, France or England, in the older days, just hoping that they're going to retain their lands, including Constantinople?
Not really. It's more of a backwards problem, if you see it, because effectively what started in 1821 up to the establishment of the Greek state was that the ruling class that was running Greece on behalf of the Ottoman Empire remained, and it just changed their names, changed their their family structures, but effectively the same people that were running Greece during the Ottoman Empire was the same families that went into politics, they had the money, the influence, and they were elected into office. That is why you had this situation that they were asking for help externally, because they knew that they didn't have any roots or any relation to the people they were trying to govern. It was not so much the fact that Greece could not defend itself, it was not a problem that Turkey was a threat or anybody in the Balkans was a threat. It was more about the people in power knowing that if I don't have external support, I cannot keep the people voting for me or supporting me. It's a historic fact and nobody can deny it. Greece had the most effective and true resistance movement during the Second World War, but equally well had the largest number of German collaborators, and equally well has the smallest number of people executed after the Second World War. Everywhere in Europe, Belgium, the Netherlands, everywhere in occupied Europe, there were executions by the thousands of people that collaborated with Germans. In Greece, instead of that, there was a couple of people that were killed, executed, the people running the government under the Quisling the governments during the occupation, they were given death sentences that were later changed into lifetime.
And in the end, some of them became prime ministers, like Mitsotakis, who was a collaborator.
Most of their descendants, the collaborators of the Nazis,
yes.
Their grandchildren are now 100% involved in the actual scandals of these days.
It makes absolutely sense.
Way too many names.
The traitor will always be a traitor, and it seems it runs in the family. That's how you have families with history and heavy names.
No.
You mentioned, allow me, you mentioned about the governments and the people being weak. Well, the people is one thing, the governments is another.
No.
I was saying basically that could it be that the governments of Greece felt the weakness and they relied on the foreign governments to help them liberate the rest of the lands?
No, it's, as I said, it was just because, as we explained, they didn't have any footing in the Greek society. That's why they needed the foreign powers to support them. Now, when it came to all the wars, the liberation wars, the Balkans, the Second World War, basically Greece always fought on its own and did everything on its own. We didn't have any real help by the Allies, ever. Practically.
How is it that the British Athens after the war against the communists?
Well, that was not the communist. That's another misconception.
Well, it might be liberal, whatever you call them. I'm not really interested. What I'm interested is that it was
because
the British.
They wanted to bring back the same guys that ruled the country before the war, that will make sure that they will serve the British interests after the war.
Well,
the thing
is it? The point is,
it was.
Sorry, if I might. As far as my history is wrong, but as far as I know, after the
liberation,
when the interfighting between the Greeks, because you can't deny it that they were fighting each other when they after the war, yeah. Now, as far as I remember, it was the British. I don't know if the Americans were there. They were the ones who sort of held Athens. And they got now what they've got as Greek democracy. Whether you like the word or not, that's not really my problem.
It's not whether we like it, it's not historically correct.
Well, how
because
how did Greece didn't get into the Eastern Bloc then?
Basically, Greece didn't get into the Eastern Bloc because during the Yalta's treatment, it was basically agreed with Stalin that, you know something, the Americans would really like Greece, you can keep the rest of Europe, and everybody was happy. It was not because the British fought the communists or anybody during the Civil War, or they helped, as they want to call it. It was just because it was agreed long before the beginning of the Civil War that Greece will be part of the West as such. Now,
obviously,
the thing is,
Greek history is not the same in Cyprus, sorry,
yeah.
but the whole Communist Party didn't fight the British in 1956 because Grivas was supposed to be having the British army against the communists in Greece. Now, I'm not agreeing with it or disagreeing with it, but that's how it is. That's what they tell us. The whole Communist Party fought against the uprising in Cyprus because Grivas was leading it and because Grivas was fighting with the British against the communists in Greece, and they sort of stopped the communists coming to power. Now, I'm not saying that it was Grivas who sort of stopped them, but that's the way they sort of saw it. And for 4 years, the Communist Party didn't take an active part in the struggle against the British.
Mr. Petrovich, I don't understand what's the point now.
The point is that what I'm saying is that the Greek government always relied on the Western powers
Yeah,
to
well,
sort of sustain
the point is,
power in Greece. That's what I'm saying.
the thing is, the point is that Greek government you talk about was not the government that the people wanted for themselves. During the 4 years, basically 4 years of occupation. The 4 years of occupation, Greeks have managed to organize themselves in a resistance movement. They managed to create democratic structures and forms of election, and the movement was more than capable to manage the country after the liberation. But there was a sort of I cannot call it immaturity, but for lack of a better word, let's call it immaturity, that people still trusted their old leaders. Now, their old leaders, they didn't have the interest of people at heart. What they wanted to do is to serve the British, mainly at the time, British and American interests. And that kind of government was the people that actually forced the Civil War fighting, and that type of government was never really elected by anybody. It was a very blurred, very twisted election process all the way to '67. That you had this fear of communism. They were terrorizing people with things that didn't really exist. So you ended up with people that were running the country, but not running the country for the best interest of its people. That's why they always had to ask for help. They always were lenient and bending backwards to satisfy whoever, either the Americans or the British or whoever, would help them, or they would help them to maintain, I wouldn't say reign, but domination of the political life in Greece. And that is basically why there's such a big, I wouldn't say a gap, but there's not a very, you cannot actually map what the governments did to what the people wanted in Greece. There was always a big difference between what was the best interest of the people and what governments did, all the way till pretty much today.
So what did you understand from the movie? From the movie, what did you understand?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, for the last 200 years, since Greece got independence in 1981, the Greek government has never really fought for the people.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
The point is that the people put them there, or some of the people put them there.
They were misleading. That's why they put them there. The thing is that now there's a problem.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Andrew, the same thing happens here.
I know.
We've got idiots electing Labour or Tory or Labour or Tory.
Yeah.
And nothing else.
Yeah, but what I want to have tonight, I don't want to
No.
I don't want to bad in, but it's easy to analyze the history. We know what things go wrong and whatever. And I suffer as a Cypriot from a lot of these governments you're talking about. There was no need for the Greek government to go and sign the agreements with Turkey and Britain in 1960. Because Turkey had no business to be there in the first place, but the Greek government accepted that they could be there.
Which was apparently
basically
a consequence of the debt.
They've always done what they were told by their masters. In 1974, the generals agreed with the Americans to divide to free Cyprus or unite Cyprus with Greece, and then they divided it for their own reasons. What I'm saying is that invariably for 200 years, we've got governments in Greece who are weak, and they relied on the Western powers. Now, if the people suffer for it, whose fault is it? Is it the people's? I mean, if they fight to liberate Greece from Turkey, fight against Albania, fight against Bulgaria, to keep them out of the Greek lands and whatever, what can the Greek people fight their own governments? And not only that, how is it that as a nation we're always divided? From 1981, even the liberals, Kolokotronis and everybody else, they were at each other's throats.
Yeah, but that is the...
Well, it's always a problem that we, as a nation, will never unite for a common cause.
We saw the problem now. We just said that 5:30 we'll have a movie and discussion.
Yeah, well,
and it's just like the guy, the king, okay, it doesn't say anything, okay, but you know, if you don't care, if the problem doesn't come to your door, to your house, they don't care.
You don't blame the government, don't
okay,
blame the
but
people.
the thing is...
The people, yeah, but you are blaming the government all the time, but the people allow them to be there, that's what I'm saying.
The thing is not...
Absolutely. The point is that throughout Greek history, that was what you say is right. That how come the people always fight for the country, but the government always betrays them. The government always betrays them. It's another fact that Greece has the most constitutional assemblies in Europe. We have 4 official ones and 3 during the revolution. Makes them 7 because exactly that. No matter who would be able to go into politics and put forward as a ruler or prime minister or how you want to call him, they always had the same trait. They were extremely well versed in manipulating people, and it's not an excuse, it's a reason. Now, how come the people are not fighting against the government? Basically, people fight against the government throughout the history. Just the only problem is, especially in the last 30 years, because you have to appreciate from 49 we had the Civil War. So from 49 all the way to the 80s, we had this odd ghost of communism hanging over the country, and that was used to terrorize the people. So they didn't have really a free mind to decide what was best for themselves. Not only that, in '63 was when the trees voted. Anyway, generally, most of the elections, the way the elections were run in Greece up to 1980, from the 1950s, were roughly always rigged one way or the other. So the people never really got the true representation. So then we reached the 80s. We had the reformation of the political system after the junta. So we entered the 80s when you have PASOK, the Socialist Party, talking about the unity of the people, everybody can get together to build a better Greece. A lot of people backed it up. It was a massive influx of members in their party. And what did they do? The first time they get into office, they start going back on their promises. First thing, we cannot get out of the European Economic Community because it's going to be too expensive. We cannot get out of NATO because it's going to be too costly. We cannot do this, we cannot do that, and they keep that. Now, when you have people from a civil war, nearly 30 years of terrorism, and then a massive disappointment in the 80s, people basically gave up on politics in practical terms.
Yeah, but you haven't mentioned one of the essential problems of Greece and Cyprus, or the Greek sort of nation, is the church. Because however you look at it, they always have a hand in everything. Yeah. Whether we like it or not, they rule the common people who got no mind of their own. I mean, I blame the Catholic Church for years and years, but when you look at ours, they're worse. Because I look at Cyprus, if tomorrow the Archbishop tells them to vote for X, Y, Z, they go and vote for it.
Yeah, exactly.
The same as in Greece. They are the ones, they go
hand to hand with the politician.
Yes.
But it's exactly the same problem. You see, what happens in church, the lower ranks, we had even up to certain high ranks, you had priests fighting during the resistance time. You had priests backing up the people. Nowadays you have priests that try to do some charity work and their bishops oppose it. And it's the same situation. The thing is,
they don't care people whether they're priest or not.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like the church itself,
it's the actual structure.
Yeah, but it works in the same way as the political system. The higher up ranks, they have their own interests.
One is the other to survive. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, but it's basically the same. It's just not. It cannot be said it's the same side of it's the two sides of the coin. But the higher ranks of the church are basically politics masked in religion. They have. So you end up in a situation like nowadays. The church of the Greek church is pushing quite hard for a lot of their forest lands to be decharacterized, so they can actually install solar power plants in them. They have no business thinking about business decisions, but they're playing along because in the beginning of 2009, 2010. The church was actually, in the modern times, were pushing quite hard against the austerity measures. They were very critical against the government, what the government was doing. Since then, their expression has been blunted up down to the point that they're not saying much anymore. Because from the point that they didn't have any interest to what's happening in Greece, as the time progresses, people find ways to bring them in. To say, you know something, there's something here for you. And that is the problem why that's my personal opinion, why the church, the higher ranks of the church, always went hand in hand with the ruling regimes, even whether they were military juntas or they were elected or whatever, because the higher ranks always, they're brought forward to something which has a material gain for the church and themselves. And that's why yeah, pretty much. And it's not, the thing is, the church, the people in the church, I personally, I'm not aware that they actually actively assisted the situation and all the decisions taken in Greece. I know that have been benefited up to a point.
No, but they sustain the governments you're talking about.
Yeah, they sustain them, but that's the thing, like, to my knowledge, I don't know if they had any active involvement in pushing for certain policies, pushing for certain people. They just, reap the benefits of them standing by.
So what do you suggest, Mr. Rodriguez?
Sorry?
What do you suggest?
What do I suggest?
Yeah, just come on to the community hall.
We'll see.
Like you, I left.
Yes. I think there is a problem. Like,
hi, my name is Manos. I'm from Thessaloniki. I've been here for 5 months, so my focus for my full English.
That's right.
But I would like to say 2 things. First, it's nice to analyze the history, and it's easy to blame everybody else and to blame governments. But from my point of view, it's not something that we give an answer. We, more or less, everybody knows and recognizes most of the government manipulations and the history and the background. For me, it would be something that will move on our thinking to find the responsibilities of ourselves during the history and the responsibilities of nowadays.
Yes.
So, please.
Sure.
So first of all, we have to understand that Greek people have their own responsibilities. For example, we have to recognize the stupidity of the civil war, and we have to recognize the stupidity of the great idea of 1920s, and we have to analyze that we've been manipulated for ages, and this is our responsibility. Then nowadays, what we have to do? It was a very nice documentary. I'm more or less excited. And what is wrong with us? Why we cannot do anything?
Well,
Why we can't?
We cannot. We do not. I mean, we don't act in a way.
Yeah,
We try to act. So, what is the answer?
well, a couple of things.
Sorry, I
I'm
want
sorry.
to finish.
Yeah, sorry. Pardon me.
First of all, we don't have an answer, and the answer is not a yes or no. Like, is from my point of view, is a two-dimensional answer. So it's a political answer and our own answer to our own perspective. So the political answer is a great no, and I agree with you. But in the same time, is a more active way of thinking of what we should do. If the answer for me was the Communist Party, I would say, yeah, let's destroy everything, But for me, it's not so easy to say, let's vote for the Communist Party. So, what is...
Who said that?
Who talks about the Communist Party?
You just put the question.
Yeah, I'm not saying.
For any party, okay, sure.
Yeah, I'm not saying. I'm just saying that all the other parties are something, and there is something else.
Well,
But in a way, I'm just analyzing the situation right now.
yeah.
Okay, I'm saying, okay. So 2 dimensions. The first dimension is political dimension, a resistance, a revolution, or whatever you want to say. However, we don't have a clear answer because we don't see our self-development and our self-knowledge and self-education and try to do small things like solidarity and small structures. So a revolution, an aggressive behavior that you suggest.
No, sorry.
No.
No.
You did
Uh,
something like that.
No, sorry.
You didn't say
No.
You said
What did I
no
say?
to NATO, no to
No.
the EU.
To start with.
Sorry, I'm talking about the documentary.
It wasn't me filming it, sorry.
So-
Did you see my name up there?
No, sorry. So,
It's just a documentary of an analysis. I'm not saying this is our personal or
okay,
collective
so
position. It's just
alternative.
someone else's.
We don't say that the answer is go away from, go out from NATO, go out
Yeah.
from EU.
I'm just trying to say that we have to do it step by step. And
Well-
the first step is to. Sorry for this.
No, sorry. Nikos.
What?
The first step is to recognize, to understand the situation. The second step is to discuss. The third step is what? Let's discuss this.
Well, the thing is, ΕΠΑΜ at least, and a lot of, not as detailed, but a lot of movements in Greece, they're actually doing this. They're developing the personal, they're developing their members, they're developing their social and political thought. This thing is actually happening in Greece as we speak. Now, step by step, well, if we're talking about practical terms, we're not talking about a bloody revolution or anything like that. The very first step is to say, in order to be able to say, to decline paying the debt, you have to first exit the European Union and the Euro. Not the European Union, you have to negotiate your relationship with the European Union, if you so see fit, or you definitely have to go outside the Euro. Because inside the Euro, you have absolutely no right to say, I'm not paying that debt. So in practical terms, first of all, you don't pay the debt. Secondly, if we're talking about the practical aspects of it, there are things that can be done in order to rebuild the monetary base of the country. If we're talking about the political side of it, since the latest agreements, they are such that the loan responsibilities of Greece, the repayment responsibilities of Greece, have to be acknowledged and taken care of as part of the internal law structure of the country. So, by default, in order for us to be able to say we're not paying this debt, we don't recognize it, we need a new constitution. So, from the political side of things, first thing, all the movements in Greece at the moment now they're based. A lot of them they do a lot of charity work and they're supporting the society around them. Because let's face it, the Argentinians had half, or no, I wouldn't say half, but pretty much their situation was as bad as it is in Greece, and they almost ate each other, literally. In Greece, this is not happening. I'm not saying things are not bad, but this is not happening to that extent, which shows that solidarity and support and social cohesion still exists. So we have all these groups, ΕΠΑΜ and other movements that basically move towards, not I wouldn't say educate, but informing society and helping people to organize themselves. So to start with, you basically coordinate all these movements into what can be called a general political strike, which means that you run the country, but you don't supply any revenue to the government. You just say, you know something, I'm going to run the country, I'm going to keep the buses, the underground, the shops open, everybody will be able to support themselves, but we won't be giving any revenue. This might, the Greek government is so strapped for cash, they might be able to last for a week, maybe 2. Worst case scenario 3. And after that, from the coordinated, the body that would have coordinated the political strike can actually take over as a temporary government. After the temporary government is set up, you take the first couple measures, the practical measures, which we can talk later if you want, and then the very first job you need to do is to declare elections for a constitutional assembly. So we need a new constitution in order to undo the legal damage which has been done the last 3 years, and then we move forward from there in the political side of things. Now, on the practical side of it is like, okay, that coordinating body that organized the general strike takes over the government for a brief period of time. What do? First of all, you say, you know something, I'm going to withdraw all the currency bills from the market, so we can use euro as an exchange currency. Because Greece has import needs that cannot be ignored, like fuels and other things we need to import, so we have to pay them with something. So we can withdraw the circulation of euro from the market to take care of that. Second thing is, you establish a credit base on a national currency, and you supply that credit through debit cards, effectively. So you can get the economy going for the first 3 to 6 months. After a period of around 8 months, obviously. After 8 months, you will be able to start circulating your own printed money. And from that point onwards, based on where do you see yourself as an economy, what is the strategy you want, where you're going to take it, basically, you can basically establish the exchange rate of your currency to every other currency, the euro, the dollar, or whatever, without throwing your currency into the international exchange currency market. That's the only way to protect yourself. You move away from the markets, you don't borrow money anymore. And if you need any cash for any reason, you can print it, or if you need to
logistically create it without actually.
Yeah, or if you say for any reason you just need a foreign currency like dollars to buy something else, or you need yens to buy something else. The very simplest thing, the most simple thing Greece can do at this point is to say, you know something, I have 1.3 trillion euros worth of minerals. You can issue a bond based on the value of the minerals, and these things are real. They're not thin air. They're not assets that they don't really exist. They're minerals in the ground. So when you extract them, you can basically receive some of its value before you extract them from the ground, and then that's how you can finance your economy for the first. You can finance the needs of the economy that need a foreign currency to be taken care of, because if your currency is not part of the international markets, you cannot really pay your oil with a national currency which cannot be exchanged anywhere else. You have to pay your oil or whatever with dollars or whatever other currency, and that's how you take care of it, roughly.
May I?
Yeah.
Allow me. Perhaps we should make clear from the very first minute, we're not right, we're not left, we're just Greeks. One thing that unites everyone that is in the...
the people that we're talking have a political background. I know most of them.
Yes, indeed, they do.
Yeah, okay.
But
that's why
even Kazakis, you probably know that
yeah,
in
I know his background.
Yeah, but he's not. He's
yeah, I'm not saying. I made arguments because I saw a documentary, a very nice one. So my argument is
based on that.
Yeah, on the documentary.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Each person that is in the United Popular Front has a different political background. The majority are either ex-New Democracy or ex-PASOK voters. Guys that actually have realized how fool they have been for 30 years straight, or a bit more. Having the guys that have realized that we may have our differences, our political differences, from far incredible right to far left incredible anarchists. We have one common thing right now. What is the need of discussing politics, discussing ideology, if we do not own our land? So let us have our land back, and then.
How do you get it? How do you get your
Let me speak.
I think I was trying to explain to you that his ways forward to try and know where you're going, but without telling us how you're going to get your land back.
Yeah,
let me say
about is.
That's what I said.
Sorry.
What he was discussing all this time was measures that we can actually implement as a nation in order to get out of the mess that we are right now.
That's
because
right.
the enemy, the established political system, has been trying extremely effectively for many years now, telling us if we stop paying the banks, then we will stop having milk coming out of the cows.
Yes, sorry, but you're oversimplifying as far as I can see. Unless you get the majority of the Greek people.
We're not saying there's going to be a minority doing this.
No, unless you get them to go on strike, as you say, stop paying for the government.
Exactly.
How do you do that? I mean, you've got to educate them first.
Yeah, you inform them.
All right.
Yeah, but informing them is one thing, but how do you tell somebody who's got kids and is not going to have an income to feed them? How do you tell somebody
that's the point.
who's got a lot of money and he doesn't want to part with it?
Well,
how do you tell the people who've got lots of money and they've got them in Switzerland?
Well, the point is that the point is the people that have a lot of money in Switzerland, they're already gone. There's nothing you can do about it. So, out of the equation. The people that have children and they need an income or they need to support their children during that general strike, that is the point of a coordinated effort, which means everybody, like everything, like the teachers will keep the schools open throughout the day so their parents can go out on the strike. The people that have shops and they're wholesalers, they're going to provide the food and everything else for the period of the striking. There will be people demonstrating or basically guarding the strike, and others will be supporting them. Basically, that's what happened in Egypt. You had the working classes in the Tahrir Square, and you had the middle classes basically supporting their families so they could afford to stay in the square. That's what we say. It's not.
What happened in Egypt? In Egypt, you got
yes, because the Egyptians did very well in uniting truly against Mubarak, but they made one mistake. They never even considered what will they do next, what will they do the moment they rid of the dictator they had. So now it seems that they may have come, they may end up realizing that they will need to do it all over again. Now, please let me establish a thought.
They didn't have a plan, in few words. They didn't have a plan. They just went there, they make the genocide, and then
They didn't say what next, what on the day after we get rid of the established corrupted system.
Guys, sorry. We agree, we don't have to be aggressive. I mean, it's okay, it's a live discussion, but we agree. I agree with the political and the economical way of thinking that you analyzed before. I agree. Sorry, I just believe that is a two-dimensional matter, and the first dimensional, if the first dimension is the politics, the second is the apathy and the hypnosis of people. So probably we have to focus on the second dimension because otherwise the first will not happen. Okay, so. I personally want to focus on the second, and I strongly believe that the second dimension, to wake up people, we have to try to develop small structures and to develop structures based on the real democracy and structures that unite the producers with the consumers, structures that they believe in the public water. Yeah. I can say like tens of structures from Thessaloniki that I've been. And then this is an educational process. And the next step is the utopia that we are talking about, the aggressive.
No, it's not, sorry, but are we talking about the same thing? Because in order to educate the people, you have to educate them on a subject, and the subject is politics. So the two dimensions you refer to, the political and the individual, the education of the people, you can educate the people by forcing them to deal with politics.
So let me ask you something. Do you think that if tomorrow we have no debt at all, zero, we have a new government with democratic...
With no struggle, it just happens.
Yeah, tomorrow. Okay.
But with no struggle, nothing happens.
That we solve the problem?
No, that's the point. We're not saying that we're expecting the thing to happen out of the thin air. That's the point.
Drachmas and with no debt and...
the only thing is...
We need our own currency as well.
Yeah, the thing is,
if we keep the euro and with zero debts tomorrow, we will be again with the same debts 10 years after.
I'm trying to say
that you're right.
The problem is not only political or financial, economical. I'm trying to say that to explain that the problem is the
Greeks.
Is more or less not the Greeks.
No, the majority of the Greeks.
The solidarity and the education of what the person next to you does.
You're right, but that's what I'm saying. If there's no struggle, as you describe it, you're right. Whatever will happen, people, because they will not have fought for it, it will be handed to them. Okay, here you go. You have no debt. You have a government which likes you. Get on with it. You're right. We're gonna end up in the same situation we were in the 90s and the 80s. nothing will change. So our point is that you need to collide, you need to struggle, you need to fight for that right for two reasons. First, to educate yourself, as you say correctly, because through the struggle you can only educate yourself, everything else is theory. And the second thing is, if you have fought for something, then you can appreciate it and guard it, and say, you know something, there's people died for this, people struggled, people bled. We're going to preserve that in their memory, and for our own sake, because we created this. So unless there's when we say a struggle, I'm not talking about a violent protest or anything like that. I'm talking about the ability of the people to go beyond the boundaries of the left and the right, beyond their own misconceptions.
Could you analyze this? Because I think that this is the point that we really have to discuss. Could you analyze this more?
What you
Yes,
analyze?
I think
How do it happen to me?
no,
Yes,
the thing is,
How
I agree with the economical part, and I agree with the political part, the movements that potential government and the measures and all this that.
how you
analyze.
so you're talking about how you
How
conquer.
gonna implement that? This is the question. How we gonna put that in practice? This in practice. That's your question.
Yeah,
No, how you will reach there is his question.
Correct. The thing is,
How you will reach that point, educating the people and making them try
but
more.
okay,
That's
what?
his point.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to
Not
answer.
underestimate the people.
Okay.
But the thing is, the point is that in order to organize a general strike, in order to be able to actually create a new constitution and all these measures, the people have to educate themselves into what is politics. They have to see above and beyond basic political ideologies. So the more you participate into movements, we're not saying, come and join us. We're not saying that. Everybody can join whoever, whatever movement, party they so see fit. The point is, organize yourself with somebody, work towards a particular goal, whatever that is. In our case, because we live abroad, the only thing we can do is basically inform people, have discussions, try to get people thinking. In Greece, there's movements like the Plirono, there's ΕΠΑΜ, there's so many other people, and ΕΠAM, let's say, a practical thing they're doing, they have created what they call a consumers corporate, which is called Thalin. Basically, what Thalin does, it's doing what you said, it's basically cutting the middleman. So you have a corporate of consumers, which they can go to the producer directly, and they can buy his produce for a fair price for him and a fair price for them. And they
lawyers, doctors in the neighborhoods, and
there's all sorts of things. So that if you organize yourself and you participate, no matter who you are, you will educate yourself. By default, that's the only way you can learn about politics. You can read all you want in books and manuals and manuscripts. Doesn't really matter unless you go out there and actually do something. So organize yourself, try to achieve something, no matter how big or small, and that's more than enough. Sorry, you want something to ask?
Yeah, basically I want to make a comment. You said a system to take the land back, as you say, and then form a sort of government within the country. But what happened? You said that this model was implemented in Egypt, but in Egypt they had dictatorship. Despite the political system does not work. Despite the political system does not work, we're still a democratic country. All you have to do is withdraw your trust from the government, and then they will fall.
No.
The next elections don't work for them.
The thing is,
they will protest.
Not many people actually voted in the previous elections.
And protests. And what happened? Basically nothing.
That's why people are not protesting anymore.
Greeks have one good and one bad thing. They're really good in analyzing, they're really good in being criticism and being good critics. But when they're really bad, they're very gullible. That's why for 30 years they still believe the same people and the same people.
I'm afraid I have to disagree on this one. For one simple, the thing is, I have to disagree on this one for two simple facts. First thing, in the last elections, the official abstention was about 40%. The real one was next to 60. Second thing, they were not gullible. They're not gullible, but they have not been able to go beyond their political reflexes. Like you had people vote, they had people voting for New Democracy saying, you know something, Samaras, he's a traitor, he's this, he's that, but I'm still going to vote for New Democracy because I belong to the right. That is a point of personal development. They have to go beyond that. And the only way to do it is actually do something.
What I would say is that most Greeks, most people are aware of the situation, they are aware of the problems. Some are more informed than others, but everybody is generally aware of that. But what is missing, to change things, you need somebody, you need a leader.
No.
And
you don't need,
who's gonna...
The thing is, you don't need a leader that comes out of thin air or comes out from abroad or is brought to you. You need a leader which will be...
Who will come out among our own ranks. The
Among
ranks
people.
of a bunch of people that live in the same neighborhood, coming together, discussing about their problems.
Yes.
Do you know if Greece signed the Treaty of Nice?
Regrettably, I'm not sure.
I don't even know what there is.
The Treaty of Nice is when our governments signed away our sovereignty.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah,
we have
in that case, you are not a democracy anymore.
That's what it is.
You do not have the right to rule yourselves. You are ruled from Brussels, like it or not. The only way you will get over it is to unite as Greeks, and not Greeks who pass on.
You're going to make me laugh now. Yes, you're going to make me laugh.
Wow.
Because you say unite as Greeks.
Oh well, point is, the thing
It's
is,
the only way you can win. EPAM is giving you a chance.
the thing is, we're talking about the thing. You're saying we have an elected government from 2009. People voted for a particular party and a particular prime minister. Then in 2010 and a bit, around 11, there was a banker assigned to the government. Who voted for him? Nobody.
The same happened in Italy.
Yeah, I know. I'm not saying they didn't.
3 days
But
later.
the point is, that's not democracy. And the thing is, generally, what we have in Europe from the 1700s onwards is not democracy. It's a democratic representation, but it's not a true democracy because nobody's really taking part in the decision making. You vote for somebody that represents you, whether he won't represent your interests or you have no control over. If he won't do his job properly, you cannot revoke your trust to him. You cannot call him back and say, you know something, I gave you my vote to do those 3 things that you promised. You've done none of them. I would like you to step down so somebody else can take over your position. This thing doesn't exist, which is a basic element of a true democracy, being able to revoke your trust to somebody who's betraying yours. So saying that we have now in Greece there is democracy, a democratically elected government, is technically correct. It's not physically or actually correct because we had a banker that he was given the government, and now we have a government which was elected by something like 15% of the people, because if you actually rank the results they got in the elections with the 50, with that law that gives 50 extra seats to the first party, then basically you have a coalition which they managed to, all of them, to gather a measly about, I don't know, anything between 30 and 20% of the votes of the actual electoral body. Depends how you see, how you calculate the absence. Now, if you have a whole country run by the 20% of the politicians that are a small percentage elected, not only that, the politicians make decisions against the will of their people because they so see fit. That's not democracy in any sense. That's how fascism works. The government says, I know better, so you should be disciplined and follow my lead. So, as I said, technically you are correct. That is democratically elected. Practically, they're not very democratic. So,
yeah, I agree what you say. I agree and I see what you say. but still as a country we're democratic, we have the system, either it works or doesn't, it's still there. If somebody wants to make a change, should be through that system.
No, the thing is,
but I agree that
the system has to be changed.
Elections, we wanted to get rid of PASOK and Democratia, and although nobody, they lost the percentage of people voting for them, they still wanted us. So it means that we're trapped in a vicious cycle, we cannot get out.
But that's the point. That's why we have to
Yes.
establish a new constitution and get rid of the old system. It's as simple as that. We cannot.
You don't have a constitution to do that.
Sorry, okay. You are talking about microeconomics, okay, but you don't talk anything about the society. Okay, I don't know if you are aware about the unemployment for the young people.
Exactly.
It's more than 50%. The fuel prices in Greece.
Exactly. The
environmental issues in Athens and in Thessaloniki. How they hit their houses.
Yeah.
Okay.
The thing is, you want to talk about the day-to-day.
You need to find a solution.
There are solutions.
To discuss some solutions about the next day, some short-term solutions. Okay, we discuss a lot, and we had a lot of discussions, not nowadays only. The last 3 years, we had a lot of discussions how this crisis and what's the reasons and blah blah blah.
Okay.
I think most people from Greece, they are really, how to say, they don't want to discuss anything about what's the reasons. They want to do something in practice and find some solutions.
Absolutely right. The thing is,
okay, I mean that we don't need to analyze so much the reasons of the crisis. Okay, the last 3 years.
We can argue as much as we want about them once we are done with the current system.
Yeah, but
the thing
in
is,
my opinion, I think that we need to discuss about the solution. Okay, if we just analyze, okay, that was a problem, that was a problem, that was a problem, that was a problem, and we don't do anything for the future. So we are going to produce something.
Do you know something? If you ask someone in Greece, what is this debt that we have and we have to pay? I think that 90% they don't know what this debt is.
But to be honest,
that's the first thing.
They don't need to know. They don't need to know.
They don't need to know what they are paying for.
Wait, because
okay, the thing is that there is
still, you know, it's not able for everyone to know anything about macroeconomics. And okay, in my opinion, you don't need to know. Okay, when you vote for somebody to represent you, you need to know that okay, he's gonna support you and to make clear that okay, I'm going to represent you.
I think the first thing is to
represent the problem. You need to find a job first, right? That's the main point of view.
The thing is, you're talking about, okay, what do you do with unemployment?
And sorry, that's why many people, they immigrate in order to find a job.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know, okay, most of my friends nowadays, they are outside from Greece.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the main reason why I'm here, and I think the most Greeks here, that's the main reason they are here.
Exactly because we do not own our land.
Point is, would you like to talk about something? I say, let's talk about something practical. Talking about how you. The thing is, how you stop unemployment.
Yeah.
Basically, now, in practical terms, as things stand in Greece, we need to rebuild pretty much 90% of our production structures, from farming all the way to infrastructures and so on and so forth. So, if you have your own currency, which will help you to finance this, to start with, we need a massive network of public, of civil infrastructure, like roads, airports, rebuild, repair, expand. So, just that program can start creating positions. Secondly, we need to rebuild our ability to farm as we used to. And then the government.
Sorry, okay. Just one minute, okay. For example, when we went up common agriculture policy,
it's not anymore in power.
Yeah, but we follow this policy from the European nations. Okay, I mean that. Okay, they say okay. Greeks, do you want to follow this? And we say yes. We didn't think about it. What they are saying, okay, this is good for you. We just say yes. Okay, we are going to do it. We don't think about it. We just do it.
No, exactly. Another thing is,
the governments are not.
It's not only about the.
Do you know that crops of oranges and lemons have been banned, and now they just have to subsidize or the funding the linum
Yeah,
which is
I'm doing
you know,
the background about this.
The point is,
the farm,
Nicholas, just a sec, please. The point is, when it came to the common agricultural policy, it was never really asked, nobody was really asked whether you like it or not. It was applied universally, and you had farmers in Kent throwing their apples away, you had farmers in Greece burying their produce in landfills, and you had farmers in the Netherlands facing the problem backwards because they have so huge quotas, they have so much excessive produce that you have wholesalers buying the produce for next to nothing. So the South has a problem, the North has a problem. Now, that's why I'm talking about renegotiating the relationship and the structure of the EU. As an idea behind it, it's not a bad idea, but it has to be implemented in a more democratic way. Now, as I said, what comes to, it's the same thing with the Lisbon Treaty. Everybody talks about the immigration problem in Greece. Oh, you have so many Pakistanis, you have so many this, and so many people that are illegally in the country. But no party, including the one on the far right, Golden Dawn, talks about the fact that this is a direct result of the Dublin treaties. There are two treaties in Dublin which basically treat all the countries equally when it comes to illegal immigration, which means that one practical aspect of it is that no matter where an immigrant is captured illegally in a country, is returned to his entry point, which technically and practically is Greece. Now, you have all these people accumulated in Greece, and that their intention is not to stay in Greece. They just came through Greece to go to the rest of Europe, because that's where the higher salaries are, that's where the more of the jobs are. So that is another attitude, that's another attribute of the European laws, the way they're passed and applied. The fact that you don't have, people don't consider the particularities of each country based on its geographical location. You have, let's say, Denmark or the UK saying, you know something, I don't mind if I arrest somebody illegally in my country to send him back to the country that he entered the European Union, and that country will take care of him, either house him or send him back to his own country. They don't have a problem with that because they know I won't be the first country somebody will enter the EU from. Everybody else doesn't have a problem because they know that we'll enter through Greece or not too many through Spain and Portugal. It's the same with the common agricultural policy. It's with all these common policies that they don't really cater for what the particular needs of each country. They try to, they think that if we have a good recipe and we apply it, it will work regardless what. And see, that's the kind of just the basic flow of how Brussels create laws. That's the basic flow, and even Brussels recognize that. That's the odd thing about it. We still recognize that, you know something, these things don't really work, but I'm going to keep at it anyway, because that's what we know. That's what we know to do, how to do. So, going back to talking about how you stop unemployment. The thing is, in Greece, as things are currently, you can only create enough job positions to stop unemployment. I'm not talking about reducing it, just halting it, only if you have your own currency. Because major public infrastructure building, rebuilding your agricultural production, building your industrial base, building your services base from almost zero, from a zero basis. It requires that effort will create the adequate positions of employment for everybody. Now,
we're talking about public sector or
not everybody.
Everything.
The thing is, when it comes to, let's say, rebuilding your agricultural production, You can say, you know something, I have to create a frame. It doesn't have to be public, but you have to be able to create a frame of laws and assistive structures which will allow the farmer to create a product of high nutritional value, and he will be able to transport it to the market or be able to transport it to a factory that will be transferred into something of higher value and then sold, and so on and so forth. So the government can do that, can provide the frame. Now, how that will be done, in a way, how much public sector or how much private sector or what's the mix, I'm afraid we don't have a particular recipe for that, because it's something that has to be decided collectively. At the moment, I can give you my view, and you can have another 3 people, even within ΕΠΑΜ, who will tell you their views. But the point is, in order to bring Greece back to a reasonable living standard of any European country, we need to work that much that actually, at the moment, we have about, if we will start building, let's say, from the day after tomorrow, we will start setting up that program of rebuilding and restructuring the country. We will have 1 in a million hands, and we won't be able to fill 1.5 million working places because of the shrinking of the population and the needs of the country. So currently, and for many years, not only we can actually occupy everybody, but we can actually have a sustainable system that for generations to come, we can always find a way to employ people. And we're not talking about public sector, just having a healthy economy which will basically seek working hands. Now, whether they're going to be workers or scientists, comes down to how things will develop. Yes?
I would like you to tell us something about the cost of doing this, because I believe that this political this policy that you suggest is an aggressive policy. You could disagree with it, but I believe that this is an aggressive policy.
It is aggressive, you're right.
And I strongly believe that we are not ready for an aggressive policy because we don't know the cost.
Well,
so every aggressive policy, may I kindly ask you something? My English is quite poor, and I don't want to be interrupted because I feel like anxious. So I believe that you are talking about an aggressive policy, national policy, and people is not ready for this policy, and furthermore they don't know the cost. So I would like from you to talk about the cost, because for example, this kind of isolation that probably would happen would have a direct cost to people. Let's say unemployment to 60%, probably for a month, for 2, for 3, and after this, the establishment of the new real democracy and the new situation, or for example, no salaries for 2 or 3 months.
Who said that?
I would say, because you propose an aggressive policy.
Yeah.
So the aggressive policy has some reaction.
Yeah,
you have to admit and to analyze this.
Yeah, easy. Point is, when would you like me to put a figure? This is going to cost us that much. It's technically impossible at this point for me or anybody to do this. When it comes to the cost, as long as it's a deficit which is actually thrown into investment, into infrastructure and production and rebuilding the country, it's not something that will create a superinflation. It's not something that will destroy the country, because the deficit is actually income to the people, and this will be augmented and repaid in the years to come. Secondly, is the policy aggressive? Yes, it is. But Greece is in such dire straits that there's no other way. Whether we're going to be isolated or not, I think nobody can really, within Europe, can really afford to isolate.
We have some examples, that's why I'm saying. We have some examples of Southern America.
Yeah, but
And the cost was really important. And this is something that we have to invest, we have to talk about. I'm not trying to say don't do this, but we have to analyze every aspect of the aggressive proposal.
But that's what I'm saying, that, you know, putting a number.
Speak about Argentina,
the thing is,
they didn't recognize the debt.
No, just the catch is, as I said, putting a value on the cost. It's that thing. I don't think most people will be able to relate to how big or small the cost is if they don't have a value. At this point, we don't have a value because it practically cannot be calculated. Whether there are going to be consequences because of the aggressive policy, they don't have to be as bad for the people, because let's say an historic, a basic example of what happened in Argentina. A lot of people suffered in Argentina, not because they decided to not recognize the debt and everything else. It was just because the way it was done. Because if, as a collective government, you say, you know, you cater for the needs of the weaker parts of your population, cater for establishing a basic living standard for everybody during this transition period, then there's no need for suffering as such. It's just a matter of building the policies behind it. So you can have an aggressive rebuild strategy to rebuild the country, while at the same time you can establish a basic living standard for everybody. You're right, if you focus on the strategy and you try to rebuild the country without actually looking after the people, then there's going to be a lot of people that will be crushed. Because imagine a situation that currently the the private lending in Greece is 150 times the gross product of Greece. Now, if the government says, you know something, I'm going to nationalize the 5 biggest banks in Greece because they're bankrupt anyway, but I won't write off the debts of the people, then you're going to find yourself in a situation that the average man on the street owned so much money to the bank, and he still owns that much money to the bank. That's why when it comes to an aggressive policy, you have to take care of the people while you're at it. And I think it's a political decision to see how you're going to do it and how much you're going to take care of the people. Because in Argentina, the way it was done, maybe because the situation was so bad, maybe because they were trying to react swiftly in a situation, they didn't really care about the people. And then you had the Argentinian people reacting to that situation by building collective markets, when people were basically trading goods for goods. And they were building parallel structures to the official structure of the government.
This wasn't the policy, eh?
No, but that's what I'm saying. You can incorporate that into your policy. It was on a mission of their government. The thing is, let's imagine a situation that you can say, you know something?
Because we talk about the frame, and this is not the frame, this is against the frame.
Yeah, the thing is, you need to build a new one. And while you're building the new one, in order to implement the aggressive policy, you can have the frame to actually support your people while you're at it. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't. If it's single-minded, you're gonna have a lot. You're right. There's gonna be a lot of people that will be crushed. But if you have a parallel structure, we say, you know, so that's our strategic goal, but we have to take care of our people while we're at it. Then there's no need for suffering, for anybody to suffer. Because imagine a very simple scenario that, you know, we have this transitional government and says, you know something, guys, we don't have any printed money to give you. Here's a debit card. You can use it to buy groceries or whatever, and we will credit your accounts with the salaries, with the pensions, and to the level you had before 2009. Immediately, you're lifting a big part of the Greek population from poverty to their previous state, which was not perfect, but was not as dire as it is now. Now, if you're a little bit more generous, or not generous, if you're a bit more careful, then you can say, you know something, a big part of the living cost in Greece is fuel, whereas heating, transportation, or whatever. At this moment, because all the refineries in Greece are privately owned, and there's a huge black market of oil, you can nationalize the refineries as they used to be, and immediately you can remove 30% of the cost without actually touching the tax that people pay on the fuel. And if you're then you want to be more generous, you can say, you know something, for a year I won't put any tax on fuel. Immediately, the living costs of the people from one level drop to another. And then, so you raise their income, you drop the living costs, that can encompass a lot more people. So they can sustain themselves and they can have a basic living standard. And you take it from there.
I agree in general. I'm just saying that we cannot trust a pure political, let me finish. We cannot trust a pure political system, and it's a matter of maturity to give a chance to ourselves to enforce this real democracy. So from my point of view, this big change is step number 3 or number 5, or a parallel step if you want to, and we have to, from my point of view, we have to focus in other things that matters, or such as self-education, small structures, and movements, really nice movements that this time is really in fashion in Greece. And of course, demonstration, blah, 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 blah. And then, second step, establishment of a real democracy. And I think leaders, but
no, thing is, we agree here.
About this.
But that's the thing. We totally agree on this one, because what we're talking about is the day after. But in order to reach to the point that you will have a future, you have to do all this. You have to organize yourself, develop political thought, whatever.
So can I say something? Nobody says that this will happen from one day to the other. This is a process that requires time, right? But you should care about yourself as well, you know? I mean, you have to educate yourself. People are organizing in the neighborhoods. Seriously, in Greece. In my neighborhood, when I went to Greece, I saw some people like doctors or lawyers or people that are in the taxis to give advice, to treat to people if they couldn't afford. You know, we don't say that this is going to be, this is the solution we implement and that's all. Of course, it requires an amount of effort and time from yourself. Of course, nobody says that. Okay, nobody has a magic recipe to solve all the problems. Okay, but first,
yes, we are saying the same. I think that we are saying that you focus too much in the currency and.
No, the thing is, the point.
Sorry. Well, the thing is that probably I don't know which people are gonna be here, right? People are gonna be here. So probably they had other points of view, okay, or other opinions. I didn't see that there were going to be here people that they have the same opinion as me. You know, this whole thing was said because moving forward, because many people had other things in their mind about the debt, about the crisis. Okay, so if you think that this is a solution, okay, you don't have anything else to say. I would just say that there's a solution. That's all. You know.
The thing is, we're focusing on the currency because it's a basic stepping stone. If you don't have the currency, all what I described, and suggested, they're impossible. That's why we're focusing on the currency, not because, apart from the fact it's a symbol of national sovereignty and so on and so forth, it's a basic tool that you need in order to be able to apply this type of policies. You need it in order to be able to do all the things I've described. That's why it's a major thing we're pushing forward. Nothing else. It's a very practical aspect. It's not just the theory behind it or the symbolism. It's extremely practical. The reasons why we're focusing on the currency. So.
about the next day. At the moment, I think, I have the impression that the biggest proportion of the goods and the food that Greece is consuming is imported. I think it's a big proportion of the things that the everyday you buy from the supermarket.
Well, the thing is,
in the big cities like Athens, let's say, because the small cities can, let's say, produce some of the food they need. Like my father or whatever, have a backyard or a piece of land that they can produce food. In the big cities like Athens that has huge supermarkets that import a huge variety of the goods they sell. When we change currency, or before we change currency, when we stop using euros, people that own all supermarkets are not able to trade with the
that's not
the rest of the world.
That's not necessarily a bad thing. The thing is, in practical terms, the agricultural production of Greece, as it stands, decimated, devastated, wrecked as it is, it still is able to produce to feed 99% of the population. As it is. We're not talking even during the rebuild of the country. We're talking about as it is.
As it is, it can.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to supermarkets and how you distribute the food,
just 1 minute.
That was my concern.
Of course,
you're right.
We're going to have all the food and things that we had before. But
the thing is,
we have lemons, we need lemons. We have oranges, we need oranges. You know, we have a growth and
somebody. The thing is, when it comes to specific food groups, like we don't have enough red meat, we don't have some other foods. You can actually trade with other countries your surplus. Let's say, as a basic example, we have something like 600% excess of oranges, which Russia is begging us since the years of the Soviet Union. They're begging us for oranges.
The trolleys have been
so we have the strength to sustain ourselves at the moment if we stop trading.
Yeah, the thing is, the only thing the supermarket is doing is providing a medium so that the produce can come to the shelves. But if the government says for a brief period of time to the people that they own the change, you know something, guys? Okay, you cannot go and buy food from wherever you cannot import lemons from Argentina anymore. Too bad. There's some lemons down the road. Go and buy lemons from them, and you can actually force them to buy them and sell them for a brief period of time. If you need to force them, I don't think you will force them, because if your transition during your transition you can guarantee the income of the people, then naturally there's no business plan that will tell you something. These people that don't have any money, I cannot sell them anything. Because the government will have established an income for those people so they can actually go and buy the produce. Secondly, because it will be sourced locally, and the government should oversee that not hundreds, the tens of middlemen in Greece are cut out of the trading, the actual cost of the food produce will be minimized substantially. We're talking about something in the order of 70 to 80%. Because the price given to the producer and the price in the supermarket are massively different. Now, if somebody says, something, a lot of the things we grow in Greece, they're imported hybrids or they're seeds that come from abroad, and we can only have 1 year's production. That is correct. There's a lot of agriculture which is done with hybrids, but as it stands, still in Greece, there's a lot of traditional cultures remain. So it's little or no effort to say, something, I'm going to go for a traditional seed and not the hybrid. I'm going to go for normal tomatoes instead of hybrids. You can swap. The only reason people go for hybrids is this. Because they know that they're going to be getting some little money for their produce, they need something which is secure, prolific, and not necessarily nutritious. So that's why they go for hybrids, because, like my uncle, that's what he does for a living, apart from other things. During summer, in the summer times, he produces all sorts of things. The only reason he doesn't like to use hybrids, and if you would use them, or he sees other his friends and his neighbors use them, is because they know that, you know something, if I will try to sell this, I will be able to sell it just above the cost price for growing this thing. So I need a lot of it to make any money, and I need a hybrid so it won't be infected by pests, it will guarantee me a certain yield. But if you cut out the middleman and you provide the producer with another good income, then they don't need to use all these things that basically are patented seeds and hybrids, so on and so forth. So there are things that can be done and can still be done.
So can I?
No, don't.
I don't really want to monopolize it, but
Again, historically, I'm sure it's
one of the things which worries me is your assumption that your hidden treasure, the 3 trillion or whatever you said, is going to produce you a monolag or
bonds. Like a bond, yeah.
Bonds to trade with your
You don't have
suppliers
to.
of oil, etc. Yeah.
You don't. The thing is, I'm not saying we have to. I say if we have to.
Okay,
because
if you start paying your suppliers, you said you need oil, you need coal, you need.
But you don't need currency for those things, because
you don't need oil.
No, you need oil, but you don't need currency for it. Because up to a couple of years ago, when Iran was an embargo was imposed on Iran,
yes,
we used to buy oil from Iran through a clearing account, which meant they were selling us oil. We could sell them goods of equal value.
So you're going back to bartering.
No, well, the thing is, when it comes to purchasing strategic materials like oil and things in huge quantities, that's one really good way of doing it. You don't really need currency to do that. It has been said, I cannot confirm it or...
Well, it doesn't matter. What I was going to say is that your hidden treasure doesn't mean anything to people who will lend you money, either in currency or in goods or whatever. I think you place some emphasis on the 3 trillion of items you've got covered. Yeah. But what I'm trying to say is that in Cyprus, we've got the gas coming out in 3 years' time, not in fact 18 months' time. So we're trying to borrow from Europe, the IMF, Russia, China, and whatever, but nobody wants to take into account the fact that in 18 months' time, we're going to have more money than what we need now, and we're going to be lending them money. But now they're not interested, so they're still screwing us, like they did to Greece, with interest and everything else. So basically, what I'm trying to say is that what you've got is if you need the money now, they dictate to what you're going to have and how you're going to have it.
Okay, first of all, we said that the money that we have to pay, we not gonna pay. Okay, we have paid that 6 times, 1.5 times. All right. So we say we don't recognize this debt, and moreover.
Yeah, but one saying is different now. You don't need it in 2 or 3 years' time.
Yeah. Point is, the thing is, when it comes to what we talked about, the potential bonds you can actually issue based on your mineral wealth, it's just a option. I'm not saying it's the option you can take immediately. When it comes, as I said, when it comes to strategic materials, basically Greece at the moment needs something like 20 billion euros for imports. In circulation, there's about 65. So, in theory, if you take the euro out of circulation and you use it as an exchange currency, you can import the items you need, let's say, not for 3 years, let's say for a year and a half, let's say the euro loses its value, or something like that. So instead of 3 years, let's call it a year and a half. Now, when it comes to stringing us along, well, if you don't really need to borrow money for any reason, you don't have to rely on your minerals or anything else to sell, to be sold. As I said, you can actually have clearing type of accounts to buy the things that you don't produce, like Greece doesn't have oil or at the moment. you can exchange it for something else. Egypt was trying to, let's say, as an example, I'm not saying this is the solution, but as an example, Egypt for years was willing to exchange a ton of oil for a ton of marble, or even more. We were talking about clearing accounts. So you can, as you move along.
I'm not skeptical, but as I said, I wish
it is.
We should succeed. That's all.
The thing is, you're right. This can happen to you, but that's the thing. It's one of the things you have to take into account.
The thing is that now we are in a position that we cannot do anything. It's devastating. Half a million people, they immigrate from Greece. If we don't do something,
what's been immigrated from Greece? It's not a new phenomenon. That
it's immigrated. 50 years before.
Australia, America, Germany, every country is full of Greeks, so it's not a sort of common thing.
Yeah, pretty much.
Greece will not be full of Greeks. That's the problem. So the only country that won't be full of Greeks would be Greece.
Eventually.
We have the Germans down there, isn't it? Now we've got the British.
The thing is that we are in a position that we can only try things. You know, not reject.
Okay.
No, I'm not saying
Gentlemen,
Is it not trading good for goods? It's a solution to go through, to go forward. To be a solution. The thing is, like bankrupting, and therefore not recognizing your debts towards your lenders and creditors, which of course the countries as well. How prone would they be to help you in that way in the future? If you say you want to stand alone, how certain you are that you can say, okay, I have a ton of foreigners, for example, give me a ton of something.
Yeah.
If from the moment you owe them oil, why would they help you in the future?
The thing is, when it comes to
how can you sustain yourself?
Yeah, when we're talking about some extremely critical items such as oil, traditionally Greece was supplied by Russia and Iran. You're not damaging Russia or Iran by not recognizing your debts. There's so many other countries that are willing to trade with Greece, and nowadays they cannot actually do it because Greece is part of the EU. So you're not isolating yourself from the entire world. As an example, during the 80s, 70s and the 80s, when the European Union was not in such force as it is now, Greece had trading relationships, if I am correct, I might be mistaken here, anything between 40 to 70 countries. We were dealing with them, selling goods, exchanging goods. Nowadays, Greece trades with 3 countries, or 2. So we have a trade with 70 countries in the past, and now we have a trading with 2 countries, Germany and France, basically. When I think what we're experiencing now, it's an isolation. What we had in the past was quite a healthy situation, and actually it was not only for Greece. In the 70s and the 80s were not only good for Greece, it was good for everybody, because there were everybody was trading with everybody. The company I work, it was established in the 70s, and within a couple of years they started selling things all the way from Japan to I don't know, Australia and all of the globe around. Nowadays, it would have been very difficult for them to achieve that if they were starting today, just because of the situation within the EU, if they were in particular trades. So
yeah, that's a different story because it's not competitive anymore to export through this way. That's why maybe we not. But the thing is, again, if you stand alone, then you're alone in terms of foreign policy, which we know that hasn't been our strong card for many, many years. Now we still have problems.
Yeah,
we will face problems. Yeah.
And now
because of the governments we have.
You know.
The thing is, because of the governments we have.
Assumingly,
yeah,
you have a theoretical support.
Yeah, but if you lead your country, then you redefine the relationship with countries that enable. Yeah, if you say I'm on with my country and I'm not a protectorate of I don't know, Germany or France, then you're redefining your relationship with other people. You say, you know, now I'm on with my country. I have the government that represents the people, and then I can trade the people and the countries I want, not with the countries and companies that imposed by the government that is imposed to us. That's how I see it. That's my position.
Yes, if you're
the thing,
trying with internal problems, because you're a transitional phase, you're strong in your foreign policy.
Yeah.
You're weakened, you're sick. When you're sick, you cannot fight.
No,
Like
the thing is,
Bulgaria or Turkey has a positional value to do something to us. Then what's positional we are? When they grow, then we can discuss about foreign policy within the Balkans.
if you have internal
Yes.
problems and you want to
If I may interrupt you.
oils or gas or whatever, do you think it's going to be so easy?
Yes.
Of course not. Nobody says that it's gonna be easy. Okay, but at least it's something that you can do, you know. Now, look at how the situation is now. Do you think that this situation is healthy?
Well, point is, when it comes to our relations with other countries, the facts are that the only country that might threaten us in any way, shape and form is Turkey. Now, because the remaining Balkan countries, they're in their absolute interest to keep good relationship with us, no matter how you see it. Something like a third of Albania's income is basically it's basically money that Albanian immigrants here in Greece send back to their families. So they have every need and inkling to keep us happy. They do. Everybody in the Balkans. Okay? Secondly,
Keep us happy.
yeah, they want to have a good relationship with us. Secondly, Turkey, we assume that Turkey wants a confrontation with us. That is not correct, because when the Turkish forces were about to invade into Syria, the people said, you know something, we don't fancy a war. There were millions demonstrating against that. Nobody mentioned it in the mass media. There were millions demonstrating. Who says that the Turkish people are in for a war? Secondly, in that subject, the only reason we have any problems with Turkey nowadays, or we had in the 90s like EMEA, so on and so forth, the only reason we had problems is that because we have governments that they were willing and capable of giving them earth and water. If you have a serious government that is able to negotiate and trade with its neighbors, everybody respects you. Because of the kind of the political system we had, that's why Turkey knew, you know something, these people are not really serious. I can sway them as I see fit. So a truly representative government for the people, of the people, that will know that I have the support of my people towards any decision I might make, it will be able to negotiate more firmly.
We agree that, but the thing is, who is this new government? Who do you think who is in the current stage?
Nobody. Nobody. Simple as that. Now, the current political system.
So there's new people who have to emerge.
Yeah, obviously, but that's the discussion we had earlier, that during this immersion of people into politics and basically creating this new future for Greece, there will be political forces that will come to the forefront from that. And these people want to have their bases into the people, and they will represent their interest. It's not an axiom, it's a kind of a logical consequence. And that's why that's why generally it's not seen that if we perform all this kind of takeover of the country, the rebuild of the country, we cannot see why anybody in the neighborhood would try to actually create any sort of trouble or any episodes with us. We might have something small, like something what happened in EMEA or whatever, but those things, when you have a serious government, it's matters that they're very easily resolved.
Exactly, yes, but you have a serious government, which we don't.
Yeah, I didn't say currently, that's the point. If we're talking about a government that will re-establish Greece, will take us out of Euro, issue a new currency and so on and so forth, this government, even if it's the temporary one, which will emerge through the organization of all the political movements in Greece, that government will be able to negotiate with Turkey and everybody else. It's kind of it's roughly, if you want to see an historical analog, it's not exactly, but fairly close, is what happened with Turkey and Greece during the Second World War? Has Turkey had any involvement in the Second World War? None whatsoever. Did they ask from the Germans, you know something, we would like have all the islands of the Aegean as we used to have them? No, they didn't bother for two reasons. One, Germany had huge strategic interest in the region, so they knew that they would say no. And secondly, the Greek people were united into a resistance, which they knew they could not possibly tackle. So they were basically between a rock and a hard place. That's why one of the reasons Turkey didn't have any influence or any, let's say, any benefit from the Second World War with respect to any claims it has against Greece, is that. It's the same kind of international situation. If the Greek people unite and fight against that particular system and they establish their authority, there's very little anybody external do to say, you know something, I'm going to invade you. Because it's proven by history, it's not theory, it's proven by history that popular resistances, when the people are united, they can defeat anybody. It's as simple as that. We've seen what happened in Vietnam, you see what is happening in Iraq, what is happening in Afghanistan. The Americans, nowadays, they have killed Bin Laden, so they say, and they have declared a win against the war, in the war against terrorism. But currently the Iraqis and the Afghans are fighting against the coalition government, the coalition forces. So much that basically in Iraq, the Americans moved out. There's only private armies now that operate, that protect oil fields and companies.
And how the country left?
How the country, the thing is, the country was left devastated, not because of the last war. It was left devastated because a dictator, sponsored by the Americans, forced Iraq into a civil war, which resulted in a 10-year embargo. That devastated Iraq. The last war was just the drop that spilled over the glass. That's what the last war was. So, exactly, but see, that's the point. The Iraqi people were not united. Now they're discovering their unity. Because under Saddam's reign, you had some reigning classes, you have some classes that were suppressed by the regime, so basically the people were divided. Then the Americans managed to erode, basically what they did to Gaddafi, they managed to erode the government by basically bribing and putting people in their pockets, and then suddenly the Iraqis found themselves divided with an invading force in their country. That's why they were destroyed, not because they were united, not because they had an understanding of who they are and what they are in the continuum of history. Their country was devastated because they found themselves basically everybody standing alone. Something basically what's happening in Greece now, or what's happening in Greece till lately. So it's not about you resisting, it's about they didn't resist that got them into the situation they are now.
Could you say a few words about yourself, about this organization or party or?
Yeah, well, the thing is, well, myself, let me start with what ΕΠΑΜ is or stands for. Basically, ΕΠΑΜ is a front, which means it's a political front. We're not a political party, we're a social front, more likely, which means we can, in our ranks, everybody can fit, from the left to the right, to the center. It doesn't matter what political ideology you carry with you, as long as beyond and above everything else, you want to defend your own country. That's what really matters for us at this point in time.
And they're a political movement, though.
Yeah, but the point is not in the left or on the right. It's a front.
Yeah.
So that's the main characteristic of it. What unites the people? What are, no, I wouldn't say dictums, but what unites the people in ΕΠΑΜ is 5 basic things. One of them is to abolish euro and return to a national currency. Second is the nationalization of the 5 biggest banks. Third, which is part of the triplet, is to not recognize the debt. So that's kind of the financial side of things. The fourth is to bring everybody to justice that brought Greece in the current situation. And the fifth, which probably is the most important thing, is to rebuild democracy in Greece based on a new constitution. These are our five basic things that everybody in EPAM agrees with. Now, when it comes to let's say what EPAM does in practical terms, okay, because it's not only about talks, speeches, screenings, and things like that. One of the things EPAM does is EPAM has built a network of medical support. So for people that don't have insurance, they cannot afford insurance, they can actually seek some medical help from doctors organized in EPAM. The second, another kind of major effort within EPAM is what is called Thalim. It's a consumer corporate which basically buys directly from the producers and distributes to its members. And everybody can join, regardless whether they're a member of EPAM or not. It's just started by people of EPAM. It doesn't really matter whether you're a member or not. You can still join that corporate, and which can provide you with good quality food for an extremely reasonable price. Third, we have something which we call ΕΠΑΜ, which stands for Science and Rebuild. It's an effort that we have called all scientists, or in every field, from engineering to medical, it doesn't really matter, to propose plans and studies of how you can rebuild the country, to have an organized plan for the day after. Thirdly, we have basically there's all sorts of activities when it comes to informing people about the situation in Greece, about what can be done, and in general, whenever EPAM is needed, it supports strikes, it supports other movements. Like recently, there's this movement in Greece, the Plirono, that had a couple of their members that had to appear in court. We showed up to show our support there, and that's another branch of activities we go into. And generally, basically publishing material as much as we can to help everybody that wants to educate themselves about the debt and what can be done about it, to do so. That's about it. Now, in the technical side of things, EPAM is organized to what it's, if you translate it directly, it's a cell. We don't want to use that word for obvious reasons nowadays. It's a pyrrhinas, which means it's a single, that's the smallest structure of the EPAM, which means, which is a group of people, anything above 3 people that are working in the same place or they live in the same neighborhood, that can, okay, and basically that's what's a pyrrhinas for us.
Nucleus could be translated, I think.
Huh?
As nucleus, would that be the word?
Core, I would say.
Is it?
Or a group, anyway.
Or you can use the more. Okay, it's not it's not an exact translation, but in English you probably use the term cell.
How?
Cell.
So you're spies.
Yes, or terrorists. It's a very, as I said,
A small group.
yeah, but that's the thing, it's a word with really negative connotation, that's why we don't want to use it. Point is, that's how the EPAM is structured, in cells, in places, neighborhoods, working places, and depending on the location and the geography of the area, they might be organized in sectors, and I don't want to bore you with the technicalities of how it is, but basically everybody within the front has a say of what is decided and what is done.
What about the leadership structure?
Leadership structure. Okay, sorry guys, I don't want to be rude, that will be the last thing because we really have to go. So, the leadership structure.
I don't want to push you out.
No, absolutely no. It's getting late.
I was going to list of this school to shut, but they've gone, so I've got to sort of shut.
Yeah, no worries. Point is, the leadership structure, it's based what we have, the highest authority within the front is its annual conference. That's where all the major issues are decided upon. We only had one because we were about a year and a bit old. Secondly, when it comes to the immediate tactical decisions, we have what they call the National Coordination Council. It's about, it has something like 27 members, something like. If I'm
selected from its
selected from the conference,
from its Kirina.
And then we have a political secretary and secretariat, which they deal with the day-to-day running of the front, and also there's an organization office, which takes care of technical issues like organizing a speech or help members to move from one place to the other, so on and so forth. And that's about it. Well, we can talk in detail later if you want to give your contact details.
We may arrange a comparable event.
Yeah, or there's all this information is available in our main websites, and you can just go there and read your heart's content. I'm afraid the English content is a little bit small, but they're working on it. That's what we have been told. And that's about it. And thank you very much for your time. Thank you. That was great.